In the last video, I was showing you how this Tesla coil slash magnifying transmitter slash even you could say quantum tunneling device maybe, but I was just wanted to show what its uses are, and I've shown that it can be used to possibly power this world one day with using just a ground connection. And so even if it's not totally to the each individual site like a building, it can be used at resonant frequencies to vibrate other magnifying transmitters on the earth, the receiving magnifying transmitter, which is probably just a mirror image of the transformer one that's putting out energy, because it would make sense if you have something that resonates, you want that's giving out resonance, you want something to take the same resonance back, so probably the same characteristics. And so instead of having the generator putting energy, you can pull the energy back out for small power grid areas if you wanted to. So, but moving on, when I was looking at some of his works, I was on this website that has like all this information, like a lot of articles and stuff. It's really interesting stuff. And he started talking about how the pulses worked in the earth, and as I said before, like they can flow from one point to the other side of the earth. But what was weird is he said in the thing, it was like 6,000 miles per 6,000 miles the wave will be at the speed of light, and then it'll return to infinity or something like that he was saying. So I tried figuring out what he was talking about. Like, I don't know if he meant the diameter of the earth going straight through the earth, or but I ended up finding its circumference. So you take the circumference and then it'll be, when you take half the circumference, 24,900 miles is the full circumference of the earth, and then half the circumference would be 12,450 miles. And then if you do a quarter of the circumference, is 6,225 miles. And so this is where it makes sense now, because now if you look at this image, this isn't a tree. This is the magnifying transmitter. And so what he's saying is that energy created in the magnifying transmitter, the speed increases to infinity, which is crazy to imagine for people, humans, and because we're thinking of it has to be an equation. But he did scientific data to show this, and he's saying that the speed is infinity at the coil, inside the coil, and once it hits the earth, it's at infinity, and it's slowing down to 6, and when it hits the midpoint of the earth equator, pretty much like an equator, and at 6,000 miles it'll hit the speed of light. And then what's neat is once it hits the speed of light, it will end up it'll start speeding up again, so it'll be faster than light, and it'll speed to infinity to the antinode of the tower. And so because of this, it will it'll go all the way down here. It'll be getting faster to slower, and then slower to faster, and then it'll hit the end, and then it'll bounce back. Then it'll probably do the same thing. It'll come back up, slow down to speed of light, and speed up to the transmitter, where the transmitter will pulse out again and make the stationary waves. But it's neat because he's saying we can, as human beings, we can make information and energy transfer at an infinity and faster than the speed of light. And maybe because of like inertia, or I'm just assuming like inertia, it seems like it wants us to go down to the speed of light again, but then it wants to speed up again. And he says that the energy comes out evenly in the waves, so maybe that's what happens. The energy is being like pulled away from itself, and it's trying to combine back together. So I don't know. It's a weird and really interesting theory to say that you're going faster than light, and you're disproving like all these theories and whatever. But so he said that the mean speed, so he's doing the average of each pulse, like an individual pulse, mean speed will reach 471,200 kilometers a second. So he says that's 57% greater than light. And so there you go. He proved it. Some people say maybe it was mountains, maybe some of the waves bounced off the mountaintops and came back to the thing. But that doesn't make sense, because he made a resonance where the wave is going to be exactly forced to the antinode of the planet and back. Like, he was a smart guy. He knows the difference between, certain things, but I don't know, well, you can believe what you want. But, going back to this, the length of the secondary conductor should be 1/4 wavelength of electrical disturbance, or the length multiplied by an odd number. And so he's probably talking about harmonics or overtones. And like, you know, this happens in sound, like music stuff, like trumpets use odd number harmonics. So the tone, that's what gives them like a different tone, but it can be like a multiplied sound. Like it's hard to explain, but just, you know, just look up harmonics and overtones and odd number, and you'll start seeing what I'm talking about. But so in a quarter wave diagram that they show for like antennas, mainly not CB, what do you call them, ham radio people, they use a quarter wavelength, and what that is that the antenna is at 1/4 of the wave, and because, you know, amplitude is the energy, amount of energy, it's going to be getting all that energy at the quarter wavelength. And you can see, like, say that's like an antenna. That's not exactly how this tower is working, but that's what it means when you're talking about quarter wavelength. You're getting the full energy amount at the quarter wavelength, because that'll be what, quarter, then half, then like 3/4, then a full wave. All right, and also in some of his patents and in his autobiographical stuff, he's talking about the Tesla coil magnifying transistor that allows free oscillations. So he's saying, like, a normal transformer uses an iron core, and that's to hold in the vibrations and stuff, but what he's just doing is making free oscillations, which, you know, they don't want to be held together, and the free oscillations allow multiplication of effect, and it's usually voltages. So the spiral coil diagrams that you've seen, you know, in the last patents, which if you just look at this video, go back a few videos and you'll start seeing what I'm talking about. So the spiral coil diagram allows free oscillations, and it helps the magnification of electrical movement. And when he says electrical movement, he's probably talking about voltage, and even when you look at the definition of voltage, it's usually like a high to low type, you know, like the high area to a low area, like a waterfall type diagram. So that's the movement. And so the primary coil, induction, magnified, and the secondary. So it's saying that the primary coil here, which is just like one wind, has a low, like, you know, it has lower energy level, and it's forcing, you know, like if it's multiplying the effect in the secondary coil every time it pulses. And so that's why the secondary can have like a lot more energy than the primary, and that's through resonance. Let me see what I'm saying here. Electrical movement proportional to the inductance and frequency, and inversely to the resistance of the secondary system. So so electrical movement, if we're assuming that that's he's saying is voltage, he's saying that it's multiplied by this. And I drew out the equation here of what he's saying in just, like, you know, common sense terms. Like this is I believe is right. So it's inductance times frequency divided by the resistance in the circuit will equal the electrical movement. I haven't seen any like diagrams in normal like electrical books that show this, but it's probably like something to do with like the inductor or a coil. So you can I'm sure you'll probably find this equation in another form in a science book. But if you look at this, I think Tesla was the one who created it first, but, you know, whatever. So also the stationary waves. Sometimes when you look up stationary waves, they usually they'll be at 1 second or a frequency, they'll be in this position, and then the next they'll be in their same spot but in the lower section of it. So it's holding the energy, staying in a stationary wave, as it's saying. So it's as if like a string's vibrating and it's just staying in one spot instead of it moving like sideways. So that's what he's meaning by the stationary waves. And so we'll go on to the next page. So you learn, like, from his diagram, he's saying through experimentation that we can go faster than light, about 57% greater than light. And I mean, I don't know, we'd have to research that, but that sounds really interesting. And so, alright, next page.